everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you days 20, 21, 22, and 23 of my artist trading cards for ATC a Day 2019. This is the third or fourth year that we've done ATCs every day in June, and it's just about wrapping up pretty soon. So I'm just giving you a quick overview of how I made these days. Yeah. So each week on Art Joy of Sharing channel, which is our live streaming channel, that's different than this one, it's the other channel, we've been doing our streaming with ATCs, and each time we've been doing a different technique. This last one was watercolor on ATCs. So I have all my ATCs that are cut out 2.5 by 3.5 inches, and they are on watercolor paper, cold pressed 140-pound watercolor paper. So all these next four are done with watercolor. I've just kind of been doing it that way because, you know, I make the backgrounds or things and then I have them sitting there after the live show, and then I go ahead and finish them up for my next several days. So the watercolor I'm using on this card is Neocolor 2 water-soluble crayons, and they are very, very water-soluble, very easy to use, highly pigmented. I'm just scribbling the color onto my underpaper, which is deli paper, picking it up with the water tank brush, and then applying it through a stencil. This is a Stencil Girl stencil. It's of a newer design. It has some silhouette type people, and I was trying it out with watercolor. So you can definitely watercolor through a stencil. It doesn't give you the crisp, clean edges that paint does, but it's fun. And we were, well, I guess it was just me on the live stream last week. I was trying different techniques and different products that are all under the category of watercolor in different ways. So this was one of the ways I was doing it, was trying out a stencil. So I have this little figure. It's kind of a ghostly or spirit type figure. And I made 3 of them across the card. I did a layer through the stencil, then I put the stencil back on and did another layer over the top with a little bit darker color of the same color. Now I'm switching to a different watercolor product. This is a Stabilo All. No, not a Stabilo All. You know, you watch me use the Stabilo all the time. This is the Stabilo Woodies. They're the same thing as the Stabilo All. They're just bigger. They're big, chunky Stabilos, and they come in a lot of colors. The pencil type only comes in like black, gray, white, green, yellow, and red, and blue. This is more amounts of colors. I'm imagining maybe where Stabilo is made, like I think maybe in Germany. They might have the smaller pencils in all the colors, but I haven't been able to find it here in the United States. I ordered these off of Amazon. You know, if you got the Neocolors, maybe you don't need the Woodies, or if you got the Woodies, maybe you don't need the Neocolors. You know, I'm not saying that you need to buy all these products. I'm absolutely not saying that. I'm just showing different products that I have because I like to collect products, art products, and I have a lot of different ones that are water soluble or watercolor. So that's what I was showing. These have some different colors, so it was fun to just use 2 different products with 2 different colors with a similar effect, similar way of using them. So I continued to do that. That was the live stream show, and you don't see all of it, but I did finish up with some Posca Pin words and a little hearts with Posca Pin for the end of that one, after layering on a few more layers with the stencils. So this thing right here was brand new on the live stream. I just bought this a couple weeks ago from Amazon, and it's a watercolor palette that you could travel with. It has a mixing tray at the bottom. It has all these different little pans that fan out like a fan, and then it even comes with its own brush, water tank brush. I didn't end up using the brush. I decided to use my Uritrict, however you say that word. I was showing the watercolor brushes, and this is also on the live stream, and then I show the finishing on the rest of the video. But I just wanted to try them out. I wanted to see what they're like. I will link them and all the other products that I use in the description box below the video, like I always do, so that you can find them if you think that this looks like something you'd like to have for your travel kit. It has a lot of colors of green. It has a lot more colors than I expected, and they have nice pigmentation. They're coming right out. I'm using these more professional brushes which hold a lot of water up in the ferrule. I don't use these brushes. They were expensive. I don't use them for anything else besides watercolor. I just save them for that. I never put them in any acrylic or anything because I want them to stay nice. And I bought them from Dick Blick store, which is a little bit more expensive than Dick Blick online. So I can probably link you to the Dick Blick online price. Not what I paid for these. They were kind of expensive. So I'm just using the different colors of greens and blues and bluish greens and all the different tones that I have here in this set to make some pine tree type effect, like a forest. I've been missing the forest lately. I'd like to go and see it. And actually, I am going to Santa Cruz to find an apartment for my kid, with him, of course, for his doctorate program that he's been accepted to. He's moving to Santa Cruz, California. So I will see the big redwoods there because they're close to San Jose and they're in the California redwood forest along the coast there. So I'm pretty excited about doing that, which will be at the beginning of July. But I'll be seeing big trees like this, and I'm excited. I miss them when I don't see them. Then what I did to finish up this card, and you know, the watercolor is all dry now. This is a different day. I took my fine tip Posca pen, which is an acrylic paint pen, and I drew in lines, illustration lines on just one of the trees to make that tree stand out from the background. I used the black and then I used the white and just drew in the tree. That's all I did. Then I mounted this onto a piece of black cardstock to give it a border. This piece was already trimmed down when I got it out of my little pack. Of course, I always put the backs on them that say who I am and all my social media contacts in case I was to send this to someone. Then I used my Brother P-Touch label maker on the very tiniest little size that I could get. And I printed, "And into the woods I go to lose my mind and find my soul." That is exactly how I feel when I go to the woods. Exactly. So I had to trim it down. The tape is bigger, and then I had to trim it down close to the small. You know, it's a lot of words for an ATC. They usually have less words than that, but I love that quote. I don't know who said it, but I love the quote. I've put it on other art journal pages and stuff before, and I've even seen it on a shirt. And if I see that shirt again, I'm going to find it. I'm going to buy it because I think it's really cool. I saw it on Facebook, you know, and I'm always afraid to buy things on Facebook because you don't necessarily get what you paid for on Facebook. What looks really cool might come out really crappy, and that's happened to me before. So I'm a little bit leery about that, but I could probably maybe find it on a different site if I really wanted to. So I put the stickers on, and then I used the very smallest of my illustration pens. Actually, these are my gray ones, and I used the dark gray, extra small little nib just to draw around the stickers and make them stand out a little bit more, make them more part of the composition. So that is the end of day 21. Yeah, that's my ATC for day 21. So we're going on to day 22 now. This was one of the stencil prints that I did with the watercolors, and it's not very dark. The leftover watercolor was on the stencil, and I flipped it over and pressed it down on a clean white ATC. It's not worth anything to me as the stencil design, so I'm just going to cover it up. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean I can't use it. So I had this cut out of a bird. This is from a Canvas Corp brand's Tattered Angels, big piece of 12 by 12 paper, and it had some birds on it and different things. It's a strange paper. It's very strange. It's got a lot of like fabric clothy type content. And so it was designed to be They call it mixed media paper. It was designed to be really sturdy, but one thing that it does kind of do is suck in the color. It's very porous. It sucks in the color because it's like almost like a rag paper. Just wants to suck everything in. So you got to put a few layers of watercolor on this. So I started out watercoloring it, but what I do like about it is that it's grayscale. So if you want something that's kind of realistic, this type of a image is really good to use because watercolor is transparent, and when you put it over the top of grayscale, you get a multi-dimensional image. Now, if you don't have something like this, what you could do is you could take a magazine picture, scan it onto your computer, and then change it using, I just use a free photo editing software. I think it's called Paint or something like that. You can just change it into grayscale, and it just converts all the colors into grays, into shades of gray. Then you can print that out. If you have a laser printer, you don't have to seal it. If you have an inkjet like me, you need to seal it with some clear gesso or matte medium. And then you can do this same type of effect over the top. I would suggest, if you're going to watercolor it, I would suggest gesso or clear gesso or watercolor ground over the top, because obviously you want it to stay absorbent, and if you put matte medium over it, it's not going to stay absorbent. So the matte medium would be for if you were going to do acrylic over the top. So you can get a grayscale image like this yourself with a little ingenuity in your computer and printer. So then once I put my first layer of watercolor over the bird, then I start on my layers of background. I need the bird to have something to stand on. I cannot stand it when things don't have something to stand on and they're just floating in the middle of the composition. It drives me crazy. It's like one of my pet peeves. So I made sure that it had a brown ground, or maybe it's a branch and you just can't tell that, because the rest of the branch isn't showing. Then filled in the background. I also used a little piece of gold doily to make a crown for the bird. I think birds look cute with crowns, and I know I'm not the only one who likes that, because I see it all the time. I see people putting crowns on birds all the time. I don't know why. I just like it. I think it's cute. So I gave the bird a little bit of a crown. Then I'm just continuing the watercolor. I decided maybe it needed a little bit of patterning in the background, so I used a stencil with some white gesso and just use one of my small sponge pouncers to go and put a little bit of like a diamond pattern in the background. It actually ends up absorbing into the paint, the watercolor paint, quite a bit, and doesn't really show up. So, but it was a good idea though. I probably should have used titanium white acrylic paint instead of gesso. So then I decided that the darks on the bird needed to be darker because it seemed pale in comparison to the background, because it was all like shades of gray. So I'm using the black, or the darkest color on the watercolor flip out palette, to add in some blacks or dark grays into the feathers and here and there, around the eye, on the crease of the beak. And then I'm using my Stabilo All pencil to add some darker shades underneath the bird and around here and there, because I can get a pretty black with the Stabilo. It's not 100% black, because it still fades out when I blend it into some shades of gray, but you know what I'm saying. Then I used a little bit of the acrylic ink from my white Posca pen to add some white highlights. And that's when it really started to look better. It started to look more balanced. The background was overpowering the foreground, and it was bothering me, so I had to keep fussing with it until I was happy, which is what I do. I edged it with potting soil archival ink, and then I'm putting some stick-on gems onto the bird's crown, and I just picked it up off the table to look at it as I was talking, and the stick-on gems are coming off, so I'm going to have to go and stick them all on with glue. I didn't do it. I should have, but I didn't. So the ones I'm putting at the top of the crown are so tiny. They are so hard to put on. That's the reason that I kind of didn't go with the glue situation, which I will now have to do. So then after I had things on the crown, I felt like it needed something around its neck. It needed a necklace or something. And so I used some gold acrylic paint and a stylus, a ball stylus, and just put some dots of gold around the bird's neck and then kind of hanging down, and then added some gems to that. And now it looks like it's wearing a necklace as well as a crown. Then to finish up, I added some big chat stickers from Tim Holtz. It says, "Be brave and feel beautiful," because I think this bird is standing out from the crowd with her crown and necklace and saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm awesome." And that takes bravery. That takes bravery. So that's day, what are we on? 22? I think so. That's day 22. So now on to day 23. So something that's fun to do with a stencil and usually alcohol inks is to lay the stencil down and put the ink on top and then let it dry, and you get this weird patterning on the card. Well, I did the same thing, only I used my Dr. P.H. Martin's watercolors. These are some intense watercolors. Do not get these on your hands. They'll be stained for days. But, you know, like one little drop of this, if you really wanted to watercolor with it, you just put a little drop in your palette and it would go for a long time. It's some intense stuff, but I just dripped it straight over the stencil onto the card and then kind of blotted it a little bit and then set that side aside to dry for a while. And once I took the stencil off, this is what I get. You can see that there is patterning on there from the stencil. And it's very intensely bright colors because of what ink I used, which is the watercolor, the fluid watercolor. So I decided to just kind of collage some stuff on there. These are a digital download from Jeannie B. Aaron's designs, printed out. They are watercolor feathers. And then I have this die cut that somebody sent me in Happy Mail. It's a branch, like probably supposed to be a pine tree, but I thought it looked kind of cool with the feathers. It kind of looks a little bit like a feather, only with more spread out twigs. What does a feather have? Feathery things. I don't know. Anyway, so I painted it black with some acrylic paint because I got to have something that's going to stand up with that extremely bright background. And then I'm adding these watercolor printout feathers, and I'm using permanent glue stick from Elmer's. It's a Elmer's Craft permanent glue stick. These have been pretty handy for me. And the reason that I didn't use matte medium, which is what you would think I would normally use for something like this, you know I would, is because of the watercolor background. I knew that if I started using a brush and getting, you know, matte medium all over the background, they would smear. And I wanted it to stay, you know, with the patterning that it had, whatever part is showing. Then there was this other cute little die cut in the same sack as the branchy looking one. That's this little cat. It's so cute. I couldn't stand it. I had to put it on there once I found it. So then I'm getting out a different watercolor set. You can see I used a lot of different watercolor sets. This one is the Sakura Koi Travel Set, and it is good quality watercolor pans. I spritz them with a water bottle when I'm using them, which is why they're cracked, because I just like them to be wet as I'm using them. And I'm just using a water tank brush. This one's an Arteza one, and I'm brightening up these watercolor feathers. They're beautiful on their own, but they could not stand up to the background. Background was too bright. So I needed to, you know, give them a little zhuzh so that they could brighten up a little bit and feel like they could stand up to that bright background. So then I add a little bit of shadow with the black watercolor. And then I decide the cat's looking too boring. What I wish that I would have done, and I should have done, but it was already too late by the time I figured it out, was to trim the cat. You know, sometimes die cuts come like that. They're like, oh yeah, this is cut out, but it's not cut out on the lines. It has this white border around it, which just bugs me to no end. And I tried to pull it off, but it was already stuck on there. I couldn't pull it off. So I ended up just like making that into a shadow all the way around to fix it. But before that, I'm coloring it in. I'm adding some stripes to the cat, some purple stripes, um, some glitter to the glasses, some orange around the glasses, some little pink cheeks, just to, jazz them up a little bit. So then I get out my Stabilo All pencil again, water soluble, highly water reactive pencil that's pretty black. And I add in some of the blackest blacks. And that's when I go around the entire cat and try to obliterate that white border with black. It works out okay, but I wished I would have cut it out instead of doing that. It was just too late by the time I realized it was one of those. I think there's a dog as well, a cute dog, and I'm going to make sure that when I use that, when I trim it out. So this is day 23. Man, we're getting there. We're getting there. Almost done. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please remember to give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment or question. I'm getting a lot less comments, so I'm not sure if people are bored or what. This is a lot of ATCs in a month, so you guys might be getting kind of bored of saying the same thing. Oh, these are so cute. What can you say? You can subscribe if you haven't already, and share. Of course, that's always awesome when you share. Pin this to Pinterest or something. So then my last final touch was with the white Posca pen to add some white highlights just to finish up this card. And that will be the end of day 23 and the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.